How was your childhood?
I like to say that I'm a child of the civil rights movement, and I happen to grow up in San Francisco, California, where I was born and raised and still live. My mother, in 1942, was the first person in her family, and perhaps in her community, to graduate from college. And part of the moral underpinning of my childhood was that my mother said that she would be eternally grateful for her parents because she did not have to pay cotton in September. She went to school in September. And that's a huge paradigm change. It's a huge change. So in part, I sit on this stage because my mother didn't have to pay cotton in September. She went to school in September. I think I'm a product of the intersect of several moments in time. As Billy August talked about in the 60s. I happened to grow up in San Francisco, to be born at that point in time when there's extraordinary explosion of music and culture. I happen to be able to also, it intersects periods of time through the civil rights movement to a sense of radicalism, and also coupled with that is a sense of commitment to social objectives, to social change. That change, for me, manifests itself when I finished university. After studying economics, I went to work in the Office of Community Development for the City and County of San Francisco. I worked there 6 years, working in community programs, working with people in programs which they themselves were empowered by the idea that they became architects of their own future, architects of their own rescue. So, and since my sense of myself as an artist, as a filmmaker, is grounded in those realities, in a sense. I was fortunate enough, very fortunate enough, to have a franchise movie, a movie which we all know, Lethal Weapon, which provided me a platform to do some of the other things that I wanted to do as a filmmaker. I had an opportunity to work with filmmakers such as Charles Burnett, a wonderful movie called To Sleep with Anger, to produce a movie about young people doing the civil rights movement, freedom song, and to produce a movie about black soldiers in the western part of the last century, the 19th century, called Buffalo Soldiers. Also to do a movie with Matt Dillon about homeless people in the United States in 1992, the scene of Fort Washington. These are the kind of movies that were able to frame the ideas of what I felt were my responsibility, not only as an artist, but as a citizen as well, and about the key issues of storytelling. If stories, in some sense, ignite our memory or help us recover our memory about who we are or who we can be, then I think we play a very important role as artists. Paul Robeson, a great American, once said, it's not enough for the artist to simply just show reality. It's his responsibility to create the reality that we envision. I had the opportunity recently to be involved with my company, Louverture Films, and my brilliant co-producer, Jocelyn Barnes, with several films. We were involved in the film, producers on the film, about the African debt crisis. And the African debt crisis, as we often see it, is often talked about in generic terms, but never talked about the real impact and the structural violence that it has on men and women, and children and families and communities. The World Bank, we're happy to say, often uses that, and the IMF uses that film now as a way of kind of reorganizing their own priorities in terms of when we talk about the debt. Bamako, by a brilliant young director from Mali, West Africa. His father is Malian, his mother is Mauritanian, Diragan Sissoko. We've also had the opportunity to do other films, such as a movie that was nominated, a documentary that was nominated for an Oscar last year, Trouble the Water. Another glimpse at New Orleans and the tragedy of Katrina. Also talking about the issues, speaking of the issues around that. We have a film that was at the Cannes Film Festival, 2 films at the Cannes Film Festival this year, one in competition that we were involved in, associate producers by a brilliant young Palestinian director Ilyas Suleiman, called The Time That Remains, and a film that we organized and produced ourselves called Soundtrack to Revolution, which is the music of the civil rights movement and the impact that music had on the movement itself. In some sense, this is just a preamble for the kind of things that I hope that I do, not simply as an actor, but also the things that I support. What is happening in the world, most notably, and I've seen this after coming from a festival here of Pan-African art in Algeria just recently, was that world cinema is happening. The people in the world, whether they're in Nigeria, whether they're in India, or where they're in the world, they want to see their own images. They want to see themselves as they reconstruct their own societies and also reconstruct their own identities. What does it mean in the 21st century as we deal with all the issues that we talk about? Issues around water, issues around food security, issues around security as it is, period. What does it mean to be a human being is a primary issue that I think we have to confront in this time, especially for young people, because you become the architects of your own future and the architects of change in the world. So what does it mean to be a human being at this time? What does it mean to be our brother's keeper? What does it mean to be a real globalized world? Not in the sense that we transport goods and services one place to the other, everything else, but in the sense of who we are in terms of having empathy, understanding, and compassion for everybody's story. So there's no uniculture here. It's a collection and a manifestation of many cultures coming together. And those differences, in some sense, reflect not only who we've been in the past, but who we can become in the future.